Okay, folks, we're going to crack on. We're a little bit late starting, and there's still a couple of comments that I'll probably just go through when I don't here. My name is Mark Hagwood. I'm the chair of the pub. Pete has been, and Gary has been really enormously helpful in putting all this together, and Gareth, who's not here anymore, who was the cyber vicar, Gareth Hill. Some of you will know. He's still working in the background, sort of virtually from London, but it's mainly us who have taken the helm at the moment. So I just wanted to whiz through some points of where we've got to so far, how we've got here and stuff like that. I'm going to be really quick because this is really boring stuff, but I'll just bang through what we are intending to do. And what is community radio? Well, what we are doing is community radio. We've had to put together a bid to get this Ofcom licence. It was a big 56-page bid with all sorts of stuff of what we intended to do to be able to get this licence, and we were lucky to do it. So we a new breed of radio station, haven't we heard that one before, but anyway, to a specific community area. So our community area is going to be from, if you put a pin in Tregony and stretch it, which is where the antenna is going to be, all going well, and put it as far as St Mawes on a piece of string and then did a circle, that's going to be our area. So probably Grampan Road, as far as Grampan Road, right across to St Hume, Evergissey, all of that. I mean, it will spread beyond that, but that's our aimed area. We're putting it for the benefit of the community, of course. That's what it's all about. It's the main thing. It's a not-for-profit, so it's purely, we've set it up as a CIC, which is a community interest company, which is a not-for-profit company, but doing things for the community. It's the base behind it. And our programs will be reflecting the needs and the interests of the community. So this is going to be part of what we're going to be able to be doing when we go back to the community. There's going to be like a listener panel is one of the things. We put some headings up at the back, and we'll ask people who are interested in certain areas later to look at those. But a listening panel will be one thing later on, who will decide, is this working, is it not working, should we change it and everything else, and we'll have a remit of how it's done. We'll be offering opportunities for everyone to participate, of course. Practical training offered, so obviously we're going to teach people how to use the equipment that we've got, and help them to understand it more, and also help younger people as well, maybe at the school or whatever. We can involve them in the whole thing as well. So it's going to be partly a training sort of area as well. We get the licence for 5 years at a time. At the end of that 5 years, Ofcom will say, have they done what their remit is, which is what we put in that 56-page brochure, and if we haven't, we'll be under risk of losing it. Hopefully we'll overachieve, but that's how we've got 5 years' time. And just to be clear at this point, we have to be broadcasting within 2 years now we have the licence. We have a 2-year gap. If we don't, we lose the licence. So this is why we have to get things rolling reasonably quickly, even if it's provisionally at this stage. Funded by grants, donations, advertising, sponsorship, so all of the above. I think we can only have 50% from actually paid advertising, and the rest has got to come in other forms. So we've worked out several ways in which that can happen. I won't go into those now. And sponsorship, of course, which is always helpful. And we have a set of key commitments, which we have to go back to. What are those? Which we have to reach. These are all them here. I mean, one of the main ones is this 80-20 speech. That sounds like a lot. I'll quickly go into those. So we've got to offer an informative, distinct, diverse and entertaining service. Okay, that's part of our remit. That sort of covers everything really, doesn't it? But, as long as we in a ballpark. And we've laid that out to be specifically music to speech ratio of 80-20. That means we have to have 80% music with 20% speech. Now, that sounds like a very little speech or talking and things like that, but you've got to remember that we have to broadcast for 24 hours. We're not allowed to have black spots, which means that probably between, I don't know what time we'll finish at night, but maybe 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning before the first volunteer comes in and does a show, that's going to be pure music fed. Okay, so if you take that 80/40 and cut it by half, because half of our entire day is going to be pure music, then we're actually getting into a 50-50 bracket during the day. 50% music, 50% talking. So that just sort of equals it out a bit. Mainly in English with some Cornish spoken shows for all those Cornish speaking people. So I'll go too far into that for the time being. But anyway, anyone who wants to do them, of course, we're there to do it. And why not learn a new language while you're at it if you haven't learned it? If you're anyone like me, have been dragged up from the realms of England. To act as a voice for the people who live and work here. So that's fairly obvious, to make sure that we express the views of everybody else, to make sure that we are entertaining everybody here, otherwise we're not fulfilling our remit. To give everyone the chance of training in radio production. So anybody here and anybody who comes forward later as a volunteer who wants to get involved, we've got to try and give them the opportunity to do so. However that works out. It won't necessarily mean doing a show, but there's lots of elements to radio production that not necessarily standing in front of the microphone. To infuse the visibility of local groups and organisations, a little like the other organisation I run, which is Rosen Online, I'm the editor of that. Partly the remit of that is exactly the same as this, really. We have free groups and societies pages for stuff that are not for profit and everything, to be able to get the word out, let people know that they exist, and give people the chance to go and join up and do everything else. And helping to promote small local businesses, of course, that is the main thing, and that's going to be partly to do with the advertising part, and partly to do, if people have got events going on or something going on that they'd like inviting people. Again, similar sort of remit as the parish magazines and as Rosen Online and stuff like that. And lastly, to be accountable to our community. I mean, the bottom line, it's as our watchword, radio your way, it is your radio station. We may have been instrumental in this initial stage of setting up and possibly overseeing it, the way it's run, but at the end of the day, it's going to be your voice that's going to be heard on there, and the listener panel that you choose to oversee that will be responsible for saying this is right, this is wrong. If you've got a problem, you can ask that listener panel to listen to you and to change the way it's put together. So it's entirely your radio. There's no hierarchy here involved. Obviously somebody has to make a final decision, but based on what people want. So that's really what we've got to, that was one in our key commitment. That's in that 56-page brochure that we put together, and I'm sure if anyone wants to see that, a lot of it's a bit dull, but there's some very interesting information about how we put it together and where we're broadcasting to and all the stuff, and some of the data that Pete came up with is astonishing. So, a lot of work on Pete's part there as well. I'm going to hand over to Pete now to go through the Where We Are Now section, which is where we've arrived at and what our stages are forward and what our thoughts are about, how we're going to move to the next stage. So,
Thank you. Okay, so obviously everyone knows that we've got our licence now, so we've got 2 years, as Mark's already said. So in that 2 years, obviously we have to sort out all of our funding, obviously we have to train people up, we have to sort out our programming, get a studio together. There's quite a lot that we've got to do, so 2 years isn't really that long. Especially a lot for grants that we're going to be applying for take a minimum of 6 months from applying for them before you actually even find out whether you've been awarded any money, so time will go pretty quickly. We've done a lot of community research already as part of our application, so we know already, we have a good idea of what the community want in terms of music and what they want to hear on the radio, that kind of thing. But obviously now we've got the licence, we'll be doing even more research to find out much more detail about how people want their radio station to sound. We've got some plans for various locations of where we'd like our studio to be based, and I'll go through that in a minute. And we're looking at different scenarios depending on the funding that we get. We're looking at the kind of ideal scenario would be this one, which is, it's probably not very easy to see from a distance, but it's a kind of big community centre that will feature a community cinema, sort of meeting, training type classroom, as well as a community internet cafe, and then obviously the radio station as well. That's our kind of main big idea that we'd like to aim towards and sort of try and find the funding for. Obviously, if the funding's not available, we've got other options as well, right down to the smallest option down here, which is almost a porter cabin type thing, with the studios based inside that. So it all very much depends on how much funding and income we can bring in. But ideally, we'd obviously like to aim higher, and then sort of decide where we go from when we know how much funding we've got. The pictures at the top are actually this village hall, because we're in talks at the moment with the village hall committee, again depending on finance, about sort of doing some renovations to the hall, mainly to the back end, which is sort of that end, upstairs and the kitchen area, to do an extension and sort of down behind this wall, to then allow us to still put in the sort of community cinema and community cafe and that kind of thing, and have it as more of a community centre than just a village hall. So there'll be kind of ideally lots of stuff going on. The cafe will be open each day for people to come in, and one of the ideas that was talked about in the application was, I can't remember the name of it, but a cafe, like a memory cafe type thing, where people can come in and record them, they can sit down at the table and record their memories about the war or when they're grown up and that. Because quite often a lot of people do have interesting stories to tell. So it's a good way, obviously it gives us material to play, and it gives them as well some sort of an audience to talk to about their experiences and that kind of thing. At the moment, that's pretty much as far as we are. We've got locations. Do we want to talk about the locations we've got?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. That's something we can talk about at a later date. But that's kind of our plans. So we're aiming big, but we've got plans for sort of all eventualities depending on finance. That's pretty much it from me.
We'd probably just mention that we've got to, obviously, before anything like this happens, and even, it's going to be 6 months, maybe a year or so, to get funding for any of this. So in the meantime, if we wanted to start, which we're quite keen to, we're looking to actually find a place to try and get going straight away if we can, even on a temporary basis, so we can get going sooner than later and then move it all at a later stage.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pass over to Gary to do the next bit.
Right, I've got another boring bit to go through here. Mark's already mentioned the CIC. The CIC is the Hub Media CIC, which is actually the corporation, the business, the not-for-profit organisation that owns and runs the Hub Radio. And although they are separate entities, at the moment there are only 4 of us, so they're very much not, okay? The articles of association surrounding the CIC make it a members organisation, so it is run on a membership basis, and we would like to get every volunteer signed up to become a member, hopefully all of you signed up to become a member, which then gives you a voting right. And then that goes back to what Mark was saying about controlling not only the radio but controlling the Hub Media as well, and the direction it takes, and the fact that it's still working for the community and not for us. So that is very, very key. And talking about election of directors, the direction of the company, aims and objectives and all that sort of stuff. Although when it comes to the radio, the aims and objectives are set clearly in stone in our Ofcom licence. So, we've got the members, and members quite rightly have been put at the top there. Chairman of the board, which is Mark at the back there. Non-executive directors, which don't exist yet. And executive and management directors, which would be Pete, myself and Gareth at the moment. So we are looking for the non-executive directors at the moment as well. And the key thing about them is they are people, and I know there's some present tonight, that have got strengths that we haven't got. And, we are not huge radio fanatics. We're not experts and professionals, say. I'm not. Mark and Pete are more. But I'm no different to probably most of you. I probably know less about radio than some of you. So there is no reason why you can't get involved. But then we need other strengths and other abilities and skills around the outside, because as Mark has said, it's not just about presenting that programme. There is a lot of administration and volunteers, there's a lot of legal issues we need to look at. You're running a company basically, so there's a lot of financial issues and stuff like that. So we need as many people to get involved in those areas as possible to make sure that we're doing it right. Marketing and publicity, a huge great thing these days. Because we've got a catchment area. We are the only community radio station in this area, but we're fighting against Pirate FM and Heart Now and BBC Cornwall. So we want to try and get the people to tune into us in our area and get the businesses to support us in our area. We're not competing with another community radio station, but we are with the big boys. If that makes sense.
It's a case of letting the community get to know the community, isn't it?
Yeah. And we need people like yourselves to do that, to go out and, as much as we can abuse social media and the press as much as we can, we do need people to talk to each other and get more people to get involved with it, and more people are going to listen to it and talk about it. So executive directors and members are very, very key. The listener panel, again, we've already sort of started that in a way that we've done surveys in the build-up to putting the application in, now over a year ago now, isn't it? And part of that was about what music choice you want, and that was more generic, and now it's more about exactly what music choice, what shows, what type of shows you want to listen. So the BBC has to do it. They have to have their own listener panel. A lot of the Pirate FM and a lot of the stations like that do it as well. So it's just exactly the same, replicated but on a smaller scale. So again, this community radio station is actually broadcasting what the community want. So they're the two sort of key parts. The non-executive directors and the membership, 3, and the listener panel. Then below that, we're looking at employing, providing funding can be made available, a station manager, someone who can run the station, the radio station, on a day-to-day basis, and that would be advertised and interviewed for. Hopefully, again, it all comes down to funding an admin assistant to help that station manager with the day-to-day running of the business. Day-to-day wise, key would be the volunteers. It's no good having all these executive, non-executive directors in the background if you've got no one sat in front of the microphone actually broadcasting, or having to just play recorded stuff all the time. So again, that's going to come down to volunteers, those that are willing to learn or have experience. We've had contact from people that have got lots of experience in radio broadcasting. I know that Mark and Pete have got experience in it, so we're tapping into their skills, and then we're transferring those over to new people, getting them on the airwaves, getting them to start putting out the radio station. So they will be divided up, hopefully eventually, into our team leaders, those that can take a bit more control and initiative, managing to a degree, organising the volunteers below, which then does take the strain off of everyone else in the system, because really everyone apart from those two people are volunteers, don't forget. No one else is paid for this. Mr. Sheehan,
I've done this one. I'm sorry.
all right. What we've got to do next? Actually, we thought we were working our rear ends off a year ago, putting this application together, and then we've had a year of silence where Ofcom have issued licences and we haven't heard anything, and we've all got on with our other lives, and it's been quite nice and calm. And then all of a sudden, we've got a licence, and actually the application was the easy bit. We've now got to commit to the things that we've said in that application, and the things that the people have said that they want us to do. So that is what is next. We've got to finalise the studio and transmitter locations. We have been in talks, as Pete has mentioned, with a number of locations, including this place, about putting a studio in there. And those talks range from tiny little studio in Pete's bedroom, all the way through to, the wife's gone, hasn't she? All the way through to, as we said, a purpose-built community centre, a true hub with the cinema, the community cafe, the internet, the training rooms, and all that sort of stuff. So we're looking to grow all the way along that, but we still need to start within that 2-year period. We've been in talks with a landowner a year ago, and the reason I'm not going to mention where that is at the moment because we haven't been back to him recently and confirmed the exact details of where we can put that transmitter. And Pete, using all the magic stuff he does on the computer, has worked out that if we had a transmitter on this spot, it would cover more or less most of our area that we want to do. We may have to look at second transmitters if Ofcom will allow it in future years to fill in the little blank spots around the coast, but it's looking good. And I think we are one of the only community radio stations that's been given a broadcast area this big. They're normally only 5 miles. They've actually agreed, because we are a clear community stuck in between St Austell and Truro, they've agreed that we can have that. So we've got to try and get into a position where we can fulfil that. Securing funding, we've got a few ideas about that. There is a huge, great big lottery programme that we can apply to, that if we got that would do everything we wanted to this building. But again, we're in early stages of talks about that, through down to little pots of money that we can get into. We've registered, we're able to run a lottery, very much the same as the Cornwall Air Ambulance, I believe, do, and the Cornwall Hospice. They run a lottery, so people can chuck in a couple of quid a month and actually stand a chance of getting something back. So something that we can work with locals at getting, but times are hard, we can't rely on that from people at the moment. Big one, which is one of the reasons why you're here tonight, recruiting volunteers. We need to do that. We need to get as much people as we can to give as much time as they can. Okay? We're not going to lock the doors on you, not let you leave before you... We're not, are we?
I'll think about it.
Before you sign up. But we don't want you to think that actually you turned up today and you've now committed 40 hours a week to it. You can give as little time as you can. That will be absolutely fine. If it's not a time now, because as I say, we're not going to be broadcasting tomorrow, if it's not a time now, please still stay involved if it's just the broadcasting side you want to be involved in, because we've got little ideas about that. We want to start doing podcasts and put them on the website, so we can start doing little programmes, whether that's video or just audio, and start getting them on the website, start getting people used to it, start getting our brand known at the different events around the area, in the different villages, and getting people talking about us, so that when we do hit the airwaves, that it's not a surprise to anyone. We've divided what we need to do, or what we think we need to do, into different areas. Because what we would like is volunteers to come forward, put your name down in as many of the groups as you want, all of the groups. If you think you've got the skills, the ability, the sheer stubbornness, which is probably the only trait I've got that I put towards this, then stick your name down. If you think you can offer something now, if you think you can offer something in the future, put your name down into one of those areas. And there on the wall behind you there, we've got finance and funding, broadly looking at anything around that, whether you can, you're a retired bookkeeper or a current accountant or something like that, and you could put some time into that, that sort of thing. Funding, you're good at mugging old ladies as they come back from the post office, or where you can get grants from, fundraising, that sort of stuff. Then moving down to sort of building and location.
Where did you find this guy?
Building and location.
Can we get any political help with that?
We have got political help. We've got, in fact, to be honest, we've had to get a grant to start, and it wasn't a huge grant, and that was given to us by the local councillors.
Right. So if we can get it down to the council and providing the land to build on.
I don't think they'll go that far at the moment.
Well, it's a possibility that it could be.
And it's something that you're about to put your name up after this, Steve, for building and location. Okay. So,
well done, congratulations.
But it's that sort of thing that we need people to start talking about, thinking about, and looking into. Because we've done a lot of this ourselves. More ideas that we can throw into the pot. Even, we've all run into dead ends over the last year and a half. But you just keep going, don't you? But building, and we're talking about those exact ideas, a piece of land where we could put a huge pub, to someone's garage that we could convert, through to when we've got the building, how we're going to kit it out. Looking at local contractors that would perhaps give a bit of time and effort for free, or using the skills that people have got here, DIY, that sort of stuff.
Well, the skills that they provide as a source of advertising for.
Exactly, in kind, definitely, yeah. And then the volunteers are the key thing, but we need to know how to look after those volunteers, we need to be able to manage those volunteers, we need to look after those volunteers. So we've got an area on its own there that we'd like people to get. We've got, a desire to be involved in administration and helping how we're going to sort the volunteers. What details do we need for them? How are we going to get them to apply? How are we going to make sure that they're looked after and they're treated fairly? And the legal side of doing that as well. Next area we're looking at is marketing. Didn't know you had that there. Marketing. So, as I mentioned before, getting the brand known throughout the area between Mevagissey, Tresillian and down to St Maur's. So getting us known, getting us up there, starting people talking about us. And we've done a little bit. I don't know if you use Facebook at all. We've got a Facebook page. We've had one for a while. Go onto the Facebook page. We've already started trying to do our own little bit of marketing where we've got, I think it's about 12 logos on there that we want to put on a t-shirt. And we're getting the community, because again it's a community radio, getting them to vote on which one they think is the best. Because we'd like to get those t-shirts produced fairly soon, so this summer we can perhaps get a few, perhaps even some of you here at the village shows at a stall telling people about the hub, even though we're not broadcasting yet, getting more people on board. So there's marketing from that through to marketing the lottery that we're hopefully going to run, through to speaking to the press and and getting the right stories out about what we're doing. So that whole marketing and PR side of things. The technical side of stuff, the stuff that I try my best to avoid, and I know Mark does. We all turn around to Pete and say, "You need to speak to Pete." But that side of stuff, it's the running of the radio station, the technical side of it, how it works, the transmitter, to installing that, to the website, to up and running. It sounds like a huge amount, but with as many people as we can picking at little bits and a few people managing that, it would be fairly easy. And then programming. Coming back to, if we haven't got the programme, we haven't got the radio station. We need a group to start thinking about that now, because should we win the lottery, or we get a load of money in a couple of weeks' time and we're broadcasting next month, we need to have something to get on there, don't we? If we're broadcasting in a year's time, we need to be thinking and know what our schedule is, how we're going to do it, and how we're going to fulfil the commitments we've got to Ofcom. So that is the next, that is a key area there really. And also built into that is what I was talking about a minute ago, is the podcasts. So in a moment we're going to have a questions and answer session with myself, Mark and Pete. After that, just take a minute, go and stick your name on the board, on the wall, the wonderful pieces of paper that we've put up, in the area that you think you can be of assistance in. You're not signing up to anything, there's no commitment, there's no contract on the back, honest. But just put your name up there if you think you can be a help in as many of those areas as you want. If you fancy that you'd like to be a team leader, that's more someone that controls and coordinates what's going on in that area, and then each team leader, each of those areas will have at least one director allocated to it. Does that make sense? So it just saves us all trying to meet at the same time to discuss it. So we can do a lot of stuff online, we can do a lot of stuff by telephone, we can have smaller meetings that can feed into bigger meetings, and then we can make sure that we know what each arm of the hub's doing at any time.
Might be worth just putting an asterisk by your name if you think you might be more team leadery.
Yeah.
Just give us an indication, so that the rest of them don't want to be,
And we'll send you the 56-page application.
Exactly.
And best of luck. But if you are willing, then please do. So that's the next step tonight. We've got another one of these meetings, so some more poor people will have to go through this on Sunday night. And we'll go through this again in a similar position to yourselves. And we'll ask them to do exactly the same. Date for your diary is that those that are very keen, those that do identify themselves that want to be a team leader, or those that want to find out a bit more, we've been invited to go to Source, which is in Falmouth, on the 23rd at 2 p.m. to meet Matthew. Now Matthew is their Pete, except Matthew knows more than Pete.
Sorry.
Source FM is Falmouth's community radio station.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to let you know then, just a bit of Cornish community radio. community radio is only, what, 4 years now, is it?
Yeah.
4 years it's been going in the country. It's the whole time Ofcom have been licensing community radio. In Cornwall, there are now, including us, there are now 7 community radio stations. You've got North Cornwall, which is in Bodmin. You've got Radio St Austell Bay, obviously St Austell. Then you come down, you've got us. Then you go to Truro, the Royal Cornwall Hospital. Their hospital radio has now got an Ofcom licence to. Well, I'm not sure what area they're going to actually. To be honest, I think Truro.
I think Truro City.
Yeah. Then you move down, you've got the Source, and then you go across from the Source to Redruth, and then down to Penwith. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's all of them, isn't it? So they've all now got licences, and most of them are broadcasting, aren't they? I think we're the only one that isn't, aren't we?
Truro aren't broadcasting to their full area yet.
So, good thing is as well is that part of the Ofcom, the commitment to Ofcom is that your areas don't clash. You know, you've got a distinct area. Falmouth have got a distinct area, and St Austell have got a distinct area. So we're not in competition with each other. So we have done already. We have started working together. So they're more than welcome to give us advice. And as I say, we're going to go over the Source, sit down with Matthew. Matthew was there from the start. He's the one who got it all going. He'll show the studios, show what they've got, what they do, and give us advice on how to go. So those that you can make it, the 23rd of June, 2 p.m. Okay? All right, any questions for Mark?
Have we got permission to advertise on our own Facebook pages for local people? Obviously, if we're all local, we know local people to get out in the local community more.
Please, yeah, share ours, do whatever you want,
Right,
mention
so
us as much as possible, yeah. Share it away, that's absolutely fine, that'd be great.
You place a great deal of emphasis on development of the building. Was that part of the Ofcom bid?
No.
Why are you placing such heavy emphasis on that?
Well, look, with the Ofcom bid, we do need a building. We need a studio. Yeah, we can't do it without a studio. So that is given. The thing that Ofcom needed to know was where our transmitter was going to be. So that's the one thing that they needed to know, where the transmitter was, what the power output was going to be, so we'd know what area it would cover, whether we would clash with anyone else.
Presumably also...
But the building side of things is an idea that the four of us had from the start, is that we're all doing this because we're community-minded individuals and we want to do something for the community. So when we started looking at different buildings, it actually came up when we had the potential for a fairly large plot that we could have put a new building on fairly cheaply, that has fallen by the wayside at the moment. And the idea was then, rather than put a little radio station on it, let's do a bit more. Let's make it into something bigger. Let's have the community cinema. Let's have the flexibility to do community TV if they ever bring that in.
i.e. getting children involved and things like that.
Yeah, and you've got more people coming through then. So by having a building that's got more throughput of people, you've got a greater chance of attracting volunteers. So that is still our ultimate aim. If we don't ever get there, we don't ever get there. So you've almost got a small radio station getting up and running and broadcasting, building into something a lot bigger if we can.
But developing a community project was not part of the Ofcom bid, and presumably
the
funding is not going to be for your community project. Is there a clash?
No, there isn't. There's no conflict. All we've got to do, the funding side of it, Ofcom aren't bothered about the funding side of it as long as we don't get more than 50% of our day-to-day running costs through advertising. So if we were suddenly donated a building and donated the equipment, it doesn't matter. If we had to go out and raise £2 million to build a building, put it in, it doesn't matter. They just, as long as we've got a transmitter where we say it's going to be, and the studio that's broadcasting, it could literally be from Pete's bedroom, as I said. But the bigger vision was, and again this comes back to the hub media, is that we weren't just looking narrowly at a radio station, we were thinking, what else could we do? What else could this be?
Protocol needs to be covered. That's it.
But we just, so it's a bigger idea. There is no conflict in funding. If the priority is getting the radio station up and running now.
Yeah, how much is the kit that you need to get going?
There are, there are other avenues that at the moment we can't talk about because it would break confidentiality. We may be able to get some kit. very cheaply at the moment. We may be able to get it on a in-kind agreement, but Peter's put through, and I'm sure he can share it with everyone. I don't know the figure off the top of my head, how much the ideal situation was.
The ideal situation for equipment was like 30,000 or something. But obviously that's the ideal situation. We could run with much lower than
Everything is about scale. We could do it in a bedroom with a couple of mics and some compressors and things like that and some equipment, right up to having 2 studios fully equipped with the whole state-of-the-art stuff. So, anything in between of that is possible. And it's exactly the same with the building.
Yeah.
We can have a little shed right up to having a village hall. And it does, to a certain extent, make sense, if it was already a building like this one, to redevelop it for the community rather than to try and recreate the wheel, if you like. So using a building that's already here and sprucing it up so it's getting more use and more input makes a lot more sense. So we're just trying to think of all the possibilities that would enhance the community while we do something like this. Because some grants that we apply for, you can only apply for once in an area, so you may as well do it right,
There's also a lot of refunding that's possible.
That's the big one we're looking at.
And getting permission from the authorities to be given a piece of land to actually build it too. Yeah.
So it's always worth looking at all of the possibilities, lay them out on the table, whether it means this building or another building like this that can be refurbished and doing it all like that, or building a brand new building, or there's a million different ways we can go. It's just got to see what's going to be the best for the community and what we can get money for.
I did out with the accounts at RSAB for a while. I know what it costs to run their radio station. And on a day-to-day basis, you take out the cost of our transmitter, on a day-to-day basis, they run on about £4,500 a year running costs.
Right.
I mean, that was always the target, and we met that quite adequately in the last year and a half.
RSAB they don't have any employed members of staff.
No employed members of staff, no board of 5 directors, basically there are 2 running it. That's probably the reason why I'm not there. And it's a very straightforward, very easily run radio. It's on a shoestring, but it uses a radio player too, which they got quite cheaply. It's got 4 or 5 computers in the studio. It's $1 to use, and it's actually serviced by one guy. Pete Gibbons runs it for them. He does a great job, and really on a very small number of hours he puts into it.
And that's exactly what we're sort of saying. That's our base level. We know that we can get in and start at that if we need to. But the whole time we've got the end goal in sight is if we can get to this bigger picture, we will do.
Yes.
And there are probably lots of stages in between. Like the ideal scenario is to have 2 studios. At most radio stations, that's the minimum they run with.
Yeah, and RSCB has to 1.
Yeah, but you can. The same as the Source. The Source did. Well, they've now got sort of 1.5, but you can run with 1 if you do need to. Yeah. And we understand that if we get a temporary building, for instance, that we can only fit 1 studio in, we'll work with that to start with because the priority is meeting the 2-year deadline.
Well, common sense means you've got to get on air really inside a year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing at the bottom line is aim for the moon. If you miss, you'll hit the stars. I mean, always go for the biggest thing first, and then scale back when you need to.
The impossibilities are possible.
Yeah.
Can we approach local businesses? I don't know, say computer shops, and that maybe ask if they've got any spare computers that they could donate to the place, or
and advertise on their behalf, or
that's ideal. Another name under finance and funding and building a location. I think we've got. So thank you for your volunteering.
Maybe you don't want a porta cabin, I'll DJ in the porta cabin. And
ideally.
No. Too hot in summer, too cold in winter.
Yeah. That would be,
There's no radio shows in soft porta cabins and very extreme from one season to another.
Well, if you could see my train shed, you would understand what is capable of being done.
Last resort, but
we have looked at a porta cabin scenario.
6 foot shed.
The amount of money you're going to put into getting a porta cabin the right size and kitted out is really actually quite expensive.
Anything's possible, regardless of how big it is. How small it is.
It's not the best of situation.
No.
I've done it before, and it's it can be sweating buckets in the sun.
We ruled the porta cabin scenario out, didn't we?
Yeah.
Got some time ago. Just got too complicated.
If you were based on this building, how much would it impinge on the present use of this building?
And that's what we discussed. We've discussed with the chair of the committee and some other committee members. We came and had a look, and it was about if we were to come in, the first thing we said, if we were to come in here, is one suggestion was underneath the stage there, where the players go. What would we then need to do to give them back that space? And whether that was storage facilities down the side. So again, we looked at that we would do it with the minimum of impact on the people that are here already, but with the ultimate gain of getting more use out of the centre, more use out of the hall. So that's what it sort of grew then from, okay, we'll take a bit of space, but we'll give it back to you by doing this, to actually, if we looked at the big lottery Reaching Communities Building Fund.
And in the transition period, there'd be chaos in here.
It could be, but we would only say, actually, what we would do, what we said to start with, we would, whatever we took up underneath that stage, we would replace immediately before we started. So, and that is just storage, isn't it, for most of the year?
Yes.
And they would have to think about, during the time they put the shows on, how they're going to manage that then. But then, the ultimate, again, the big picture, and it might not happen to this building, it might happen somewhere else, was I was all for having community cinema, getting that going. I've seen that run in a few towns around Cornwall, it runs really, really well. The stage is okay, but again, if we could get this big grant, something could be done about that. That could be renovated and redone, the kitchen could be redone, the rooms could be moved, and then the village hall committee came to us and said, actually, we would prefer it if the meeting rooms were here rather than there. And so we did get into a sort of mutually beneficial discussion about how the whole building could be improved, not taken over by us. The last thing we're going to do is take away a facility in the area.
I was going to say the main point about the hub is it's to append what's already there, not to replace or to cause chaos in. There is, naturally with change, there's always a little bit of chaos and we have to put up with that, but the main aim would be to add services and add strengths to the village as opposed to taking away. So and that goes for working with parish magazines. We don't want to overrun them. We want to work together with them so that they get a better following and they get a better feature as well. So it's all about adding to
dealing with trials and retributions.
There's also like old buildings that are abandoned and basically no one's living there. It's like maybe using things like that to actually get it up and running instead of it being sat there and abandoned. Like there's a hotel in Evergizzy.
But that's been knocked down.
It's been there for years and years. It's sat there, a great big huge old B&B hotel.
It's people.
And it's an eyesore, but someone could come along like yourselves and make something of it and make something locally.
The difficulty we've got with that, and it is something we did look at to start with, is that in a city you'd be big town dead easy.
Yeah.
On the area that we want to cover, it's extremely difficult because, like Mevagissey, if there is an ideal building here, then the huge problem we've got is our transmitter has to be just outside Tregony for it to cover the whole area. And then we've got to work out how we're going to get the signal back from there to here, which is one of the reasons why this building is ideal. In fact, the places that we've looked at are all within, at the moment, are all within probably 100 metres, 200 metres of this site, because this has got direct line of sight.
Centrically aligned.
It's all direct line of sight to the transmitter.
Yeah.
And there are no disused buildings in this area. So, it's one of the prices we pay for to live in such a lovely area, isn't it? But
are there any other existing buildings like this that you're looking at for a refurbishment?
No. The other two sites that we've had discussions about, in fact, no real issues, is where the old school building used to be below the park. It's now used as a little car park, the entrance to the kids' play park there. That was a small area there, and that's when we had the porter cabin discussions, and we did a presentation to the parish council and discussed that. And the other place was, we were talking to the school about a portion of land on the school site that isn't used. But neither of those conversations got all the way down the line, is probably the right way to put it, and this one has been the furthest forward. We have entered into discussions with another building owner that might give us an opportunity of a temporary measure before we come into here as well. So
we'll look at anything, but of course, at the end of the day, it's got to be right for everybody and everything, whether it's the community and the community. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to take a building like this and to optimise it because it's the best for everybody. It's already here, people are using it, so to make it even more use would just increase the community's involvement.
There are local builders actually around this area.
Yeah, and we hope to tap into
Yeah,
it as well.
yeah,
I mean, we chose Tregony not just because it's slap bang in the middle of the area, but we're looking at Tregony because it is on the main bus route through this area. The schools and other services are here, so people do come to the village anyway. It is fairly, as anything can be in this part of Cornwall, fairly easy to get to as well. So, you know, it was chosen for those reasons as well, for the accessibility reasons. We did rule out little industrial estates out in the middle of nowhere further down in the Roseland because of that reason, because straight away then you start taking away the ability for people to get here by bus, the ability for teenagers to pop in after school and that sort of thing. So we are still concentrating, I think it's fair to say, on Tregony because of the transmitter proximity.
But not exclusively on this building, but it seems to make a lot of sense. But, you know, if the community don't want it, we won't do it. You know, it's always comes back to the community.
There's always an alternative.
Pete's bedroom.
Somebody I spoke to about it brought up how it conflicts or aligns with Radio Roseland that broadcasts out of the Roseland school and what.
Radio Roseland runs on a licence that legally shouldn't broadcast past the boundaries of the school, although you can obviously pick it up outside there. And that is why we were permitted to have a licence in the same area, and there wasn't deemed to be a conflict because it's a completely different type of licence. There are other issues around that it's not really right to talk about at the moment, but we are aware and we are very, very confident there will be no conflict. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I just think, as a committee member for this building, I've been for 26 years now, since it ceased to be a Nissen hut, that you guys should be welcome.
Thank you.
And in a wider sense, I think that you folks should be really welcomed into Tregony, because, not necessarily because we are Tregony, but because if a community doesn't grow, it dies. It's like a plant, that if it doesn't grow, it gets warts and it gets all sorts of diseases and it dies. And as a community, Tregony undoubtedly needs to grow. And this is the sort of growth that I reckon that Tregony could well benefit from. So I think that as a community, and I speak for myself when I say this, obviously not Tregony community, we should welcome you and say, come on, we'll give you all the help we can, let's go for it, let's go, let's get on.
That's good to hear.
I mean, it would be nice if there was a viable plot of land that was available that wasn't insufficient for anyone, even though they own it, whether there's room there to...
Yeah, you need it though. I agree that this is just perfect.
Yeah, this is perfect, but if you want to get bigger, like as in...
The other issue is a lot of the funding is only available to convert existing buildings, isn't it, rather than building a new building.
Right, okay.
Because then you're taking something away from...
There is a lottery stream, the Reaching Communities Buildings Fund, that will grant hundreds of thousands of pounds to renovate an existing community building and to increase its community use.
Or expand it a different position on the same basis.
It won't put it into a new place. You can't build a new one. It has to be an existing building to be refurbished and its community use extended, which is exactly what we're talking about. Could be done with this building.
And it makes no sense as well to create another building somewhere else and put a cinema and cafe and everything else, and this then becomes redundant, just becomes a black smelly hole.
Well, if it's made possible to be done here, then fair enough.
Yeah, I think there's room for all of that in here.
Yeah.
It's just a question of optimising the space that's here. That hasn't
potential.
been done.
There's the potential.
Mark, can I just ask, what's the current occupancy level of this? So how often is it used?
Not enough.
Very seldom, not enough. Not enough.
Apart from the pantomime.
Yes. Occasionally.
And things like the cards upstairs.
Yeah.
They've lost
Dog training on a Monday, haven't they?
Is parking a problem or not? It's the first time I've been...
I think it can be. When the hall's well used, even I've used it for children's birthday parties, and even that, people do struggle to find parking.
Well,
But I know they've had talks.
there is a
with-
patch
yeah.
of grass out there that when we gave, or nearly gave, some of it to the parish, our idea was that they might make that for parking, but they never did.
Well, these are
That's
all
what
the
I
things
meant
we're
by
looking
the
at.
expansion factor of it, like, you know. I mean,
I think when we had very initial talks about that, and Pete put together that rather brilliant plan there and everything, we just discussed a very open discussion to say what they seem to be very open, the planners, to saying okay, we could probably do that, and again it's optimising the use of the space, to make sure that we do get a bit more parking and do get a bit more space around here.
Because to a degree at the minute this building must almost be costing the community money rather than whereas it's got the capacity to make a fortune really for the community if it's...
Just let me say how this building is funded. It gets no grants from anyone. It in fact is a charity, and it exists entirely on money that is raised by members of the committee in donations and one thing and another, which is why we're going to have a silent auction on Saturday week to try and to get some money. And the only other money it gets is from lettings.
And 101.
Well, that's money that comes from the community. I run a thing that brings in about 1,500 quid a year, which is a very small lottery. It's called the 101 Club, and I suppose over the time I've been running it, it's brought in about £15,000 one way and another. But it's a tiny lottery that spreads around the community here. So it doesn't have funding from anywhere except the community and lettings. That's it. And the committee that runs the place, the articles of association of that committee, when it was originally set up, was that it should consist of representatives from any organisation within the parishes of Tregony and Cuby that runs a community operation. So, at that time there were 3 churches in Tregony, there are only 2 now, so there were 3 from there. There was the sports club, there was the folk dancing people, there were the dog people, there was clockhouse players, I can't remember who they all were now, there was a whole bunch of them. Well, when you look around, what's happened? A lot of those people have disappeared, so the committee has gradually got smaller and smaller. And the other thing that's happened is that people would say, oh, it's all right, I already represent the committee on the SP group or something. It's okay, I'll represent the church as well. And the problem with that is that if you represent more than one community organisation, you immediately lose one committee member. So there's no doubt about it that the survival of this hall over the next 5 years is moot, will it?
Is there any interaction between this building and, is it called Rose Park, the care home?
Roseland Park.
Roseland Park. Is there any interaction between the 2 organisations? Do they use this in any
There's
way?
probably more with the church hall, isn't there, I think?
A lot of their own facilities, I think, haven't they?
Yeah.
Roseland Park.
In the church hall, does that present any, have you had to have discussions with the church hall and stuff? So I was just thinking in terms of they're doing their produce market and things now, they seem to be doing a lot to fill
They are, and
fill
to be
the quota
fair,
over there, and that
you've also got the hall down the road as well. So and it would purely be a competition issue. We would prefer not to go into a church building. I think there are issues around any aligning with religion within a community radio station anyway. So that there'd be difficulties around that. Not saying that we're against that, but there are issues that are around politics.
As a community, the church should be involved to help, rather than bring the biblical terms.
Oh, and they are. One of our directors is a Methodist minister, so they are involved.
That's Gareth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are strict rules about about how religion and everything else should play in the Ofcom licence. So there's things you have to adhere to.
Also, this man's right, in villages and that, we need something a little bit bigger to help, because when it dies, all the teenagers become stagnant, they become bored, they get into trouble. With something they can focus on and pop in and maybe help, gives them a purpose.
And music's a very big draw for that.
And the educational factor of it, of bringing children, to bring them in to teach them how to actually assist in making a radio, is a big achievement if it's followed through.
It gives them learning, it'll give them confidence.
Kids at Rosen School have got more experience in running a radio station than we have.
Maybe if they worked in tune with, they could be part of it.
We will be poaching them, don't you worry. But there's this. I mean, this building again. The meetings have happened the wrong way around. Really, we have got a meeting with the Village Hall Committee next week. I think it is. Isn't it? So we'll be able to, we haven't discussed anything for probably about a year. So we need to get back into discussions about this building, and the questions, and like I take some board now, the questions I'll be asking are, can we come into this building in the small scale start that we were talking about, very, very small, and because that has to be our priority now. Our priority has to be broadcasting.
Yeah, the bottom rung of the ladder.
So can we get into this building and work up from there, or do we need to now look at a building elsewhere where we can start and hopefully still have this as our end goal?
There's advantages and disadvantages with both. I mean, if you start here and then you have to build, then you've got to close this down and go somewhere else in the meantime. So there are advantages of having a temporary place somewhere else, so that if we did get the grant, we wouldn't be in the middle of the chaos. But
I mean, minimum amount of money if we move forward at all.
Maintain them.
We've got we have the equipment we have belongs to mainly Pete, and we have no radio equipment. We have we don't have a transmitter yet. It is all achievable. If you look at, there are 6 other community radio stations in Cornwall that have done this. So
I'm sure it is.
But it is
a bite-sized chunk. So where's the first 5, and then presumably every time you play a record, you've got to pay royalty fees. So there is some money required throughout.
Yeah, the finance and building are, until you've got them sorted, there's obviously volunteers you can get involved and stuff in marketing, but the building and the finance are big things at the moment.
It's the kit for it, then the building.
Well, then the other way around, really.
Especially on the drawing factor of the design.
We need someone to put the kit, because we might get a building that isn't big enough for 2 studios, so we don't want to go buying 2 studios worth of kit, 10 computers and a nice big comfy leather chair for Mark, if there's nowhere for it to go. So it's very much a chicken and egg scenario, isn't it? We need, it's like we have
some minimum kit that you can move from one place. You need to know where it's located.
We need to start so we don't get too much and then have to work down.
Yeah, it's been brave to venture the unknown, right?
I think it's exciting. Exciting times is
Pete, do you know how much these 2 back rooms are used?
Other than for the pantomime, I don't think they're used at all.
Are they still used for storage of things?
A small amount, but nothing that couldn't be put somewhere else.
And how much room would that give you?
Well, those 2 rooms by themselves wouldn't really be big enough. You could probably put a studio in one of them, but obviously if that was the only option, if that was the only avenue we found to go down, then we can make it work. We can make most things work, but obviously it's not an ideal starting scenario, but it could be made to work.
And this is the difficult. We've been asked this question today: is how much space do you need? And if you ask that question to Pete, he's got oodles and oodles of studios and all sorts of stuff.
Rolling out the plan.
It's like asking how long is a piece of string.
If you could
Can you fit
start
into this?
there whilst anything else was being done.
Right. Finding somewhere to start from.
That's right.
I think you've got uphill trying to get the things that are in that room out.
Yeah.
But you could probably drive it in if you had enough people at the meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
We could do it in cover of darkness, get all the rooms around.
I think the initial thing now is for the next few weeks, it's apart from getting all the other bits and pieces together and getting volunteers doing various things and starting things, is to have these firm conversations, to lay out onto the table what are the possibilities, what is the committee here can offer onto the table and can give, what can other possibilities have, and then we've got to sit round a table and we've got to say, okay, which one of these is the one we think is going to be the best option for this time being, and then make a decision on it. So the first thing is to see what's on the table.
And get started with something, even if it's only small.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we? I don't know. Actually, once we start broadcasting, we have to do it 24/7 from that moment.
Yeah. Once we've started, we want to.
Okay. We couldn't just start slowly.
But obviously, it's not a case of.
Literally from day one, you have to do that.
You have to do it. So we can't. The thing is,
You can't build up over 6 months.
No. There's not allowed to be black time once we've started.
Yeah, well, can I ask a question about broadcasting instead of buildings? It's just on that one, who dictates the 24-hour thing? Is that broadcasting licence thing?
Yeah, there's various Ofcom codes of conduct and broadcasting codes and things that state sort of what you're allowed to broadcast and not allowed to broadcast and things. And one of them in there somewhere, certainly your transmitter can't turn off. There needs to be at least a signal coming.
You can always be found, I suppose.
Yeah, so there's always.
And the 80-20 music breakdown, is that again dictated from above, or is
No,
it?
that's something that's in our own key commitments, and that was put together from the research around the community of what percentage of music to speech did people want, and that was the average. Some people wanted all music, other people wanted more Radio 4 style.
Yeah.
But when we worked it all out, that was a kind of
research and analysis.
Can I just then, finally on that one, if I switch on the radio and I'm just sort of going through the channels and I hear, I don't know, Coldplay or something, and it could be Radio 1, it could be Radio 2, it could be Cornwall, it could be Park, it could be you.
Yeah.
How are you going to be distinctive in the way that you play Coldplay?
Well, there'll be a few things. First of all the modern radios have what's called RDS, so it displays the name. So we'll obviously have that. But then, as other stations do, we'll also have obviously jingles and idents and sort of the bits that say this is the hub and things like that in between the songs. And obviously presenters, as part of the training, they'll learn that between songs they have to obviously identify the station and that kind of thing. So much the same as any other station, when you hear a song, as soon as a presenter comes on, they'll say this is Pirate FM or whatever. Yeah. It'd be in just the same way as that, really.
And we want to be as unique as we can, and we have said it in our, Mark jokes about the Cornish language bit, but Cornish are very, very proud of the culture. Let's bring as much of that, not just in the spoken word, into the broadcasting, but music and festivals and things like that. And
well, it seemed when you said it, you were almost being apologetic about it, saying, look, I know it looks a lot 80-20, but it's all right, most of it happen at night, as if that wasn't really what you wanted. I mean, what do you?
It's what's achievable, and the thing is that a lot of it has to be automated, and that can be changed over time. And even if you're automating programs throughout the night, we can only automate spoken programs that we've got already recorded.
Well, the other question is, how does it compare price-wise? I mean, doesn't it cost you money to play music in a way that it wouldn't necessarily speech?
It's only a difference of if you play music or don't play music.
Yeah.
No matter how much you play, how much music you play, the amount you pay is always the same. For community radio,
community radio doesn't have to pay a per play license fee like the largest stations do.
It's a one-off fee for Performing Rights Society.
Just yearly cost. Community
you can play anything that's licensable, yes, and you can play as much as you like for one-off fee. So we can have 100% music. It won't cost any more than 5% music
through the night for free.
Yeah, it's not going to cost anything. It's the larger stations you have to pay per, and then they have to give results of what they played and reports. But of course, for community, that would be completely unreasonable.
A varying degree in percentage, it could work out like that.
No, we have a set commitment. We have 80-20 is set in stone. That's part of the Ofcom.
That's fine.
We can veer a little bit around it, but we can't.
That's what I mean.
We can't suddenly do 80% music, 80% speech, and 20% music because Ofcom will stop us.
Yeah,
that's what we've committed to.
Yeah, and the other thing is we can change our key commitments each year. So if after we've been broadcasting for a year, we decide actually this isn't achievable and we're actually playing more music than speech, or we're actually doing more speech than music, after a year we can amend our key commitments and say we want to go 70-30 or something.
Right.
And what we'd like to do, as we said a moment ago, is we've got when we start building up and we get some really good fun presenters and we start getting some really good programmes, interviews, that sort of stuff, then we get stock of those, and you start playing those later in the night. So those are perhaps broadcast live during the day, you then play it again later in the week during the night. So that's replacing that the music output all through the night. But at the start, because we can't have that black spot, if you go onto Ofcom's community radio site, into Ofcom's site in itself, they do penalise radio stations all the time for not as silly as 5 seconds, but a couple of minutes out. People do complain. They do try to tune into the hub, and I heard nothing for 2 minutes, and I complained to Ofcom, and then Ofcom do sanction and have taken licences away, I believe, haven't they, for people that have not stuck to their key commitments and not broadcast for that 24 hours. I was worried about it when I first heard it, to be honest, and then Pete told me there's a computer program that can do it for you, and I relaxed. So.
Has any assessment been done, technical assessment been done on coverage of it, to particularly difficult terrain in some areas?
Can you bring it up at all? Have you got any
Yes, I can bring it up.
Pete's done it. In fact, Ofcom, normally you have to go to a professional that will produce it. Would have cost us about £100 to do it. But actually, with the skills that this man has got here, Ofcom accepted what he's done. So he's done a broadcast map of the area, and it does show that I think the significant areas are going to be places like Portlow and St Mawes, right down in the harbour of St Mawes to start with. But the other thing we're going to do as well, and we hope to do from start, is internet radio as well. So not just looking at, can you tell what it is yet? Well, that's the storm we had today.
That's St Mawes. So our broadcast area being kind of from St Mawes around to Mevagissey, which is somewhere over here. So obviously central covers sort of Ground Road right round.
Red's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the light blue is kind of the lowest coverage area.
You're going to whip into some Rosston.
No, we're not. We won't do that.
There probably will be overspill in the same way that you can hear Radio St Austell Bay from here.
Well, that's the trouble. It can't be heard in Carlisle Bay.
Yeah, that's
It depends what the atmosphere position is as well. If it's a clear day, it'll get further. Yeah, on a bad day, it won't.
Big transmitter on top of gold.
Yeah, and that might be, that perhaps not Gold Rock, but that might be something that we have to do. And I know Penwith have got the same issue as well, and they've already been in talks with Ofcom, and Ofcom have said that they could consider other transmitters as well. So
the top of the hill, the water tower in St Maws, for example. If we wanted to get right down deep into St Maws, you can put a secondary one that bounces off from there, which will boost it.
So based on this map, what proportion of the area is likely to be too weak to be usable?
Well, it's pretty much only coastal areas. But until we actually get the transmitter in place, it's hard. You can do as many coverage maps as you want, but it's
you even get that with mobile phones at the sea, right?
Yeah, so it's really a case of when we get the antenna put up and everything.
It's safe to say green and blue will hit.
Check it. Pardon?
Green and blue will hit.
Well, I don't know. Green and blue should be okay. It's more. Well, it's the dark blue which will be kind of getting fuzzy, and then obviously white is or clear is no signal. And that's all obviously because there might be like a hill here or something.
Yeah.
But that's part of the limitation of community radio. You can't dictate how much power you have. We're kind of told this is our area and we can only transmit to a certain power. If for example, once we put the transmitter up, we find that we can't pick up the test broadcasts in Mevagissey, we can then go back to Ofcom and say we'd like to apply for a small licence to put a small transmitter in Mevagissey to cover that area.
It comes down to wattage.
Yeah, that's right. It all depends.
And again,
in the
we've
BBC
got
have blank areas.
that's
Sure, so I wouldn't reach it.
No, and it comes down to, again, it's community radio. Just because we don't fulfil a particular village or part of a village, before we go spending money on an antenna or whatever there, we're going to speak to the residents, aren't we, and find out what they want. If we go down there and find out, no, we're all alright, we're actually all online and listen to you anyway, then perhaps we won't go down that road. Or if they say, yeah, we don't want you, we listen to Radio St Austell Bay because it's leaking over.
There's also digital radio creeping in as well.
Yeah.
So
living in Mevagissey, crying out for it.
Yeah.
Really crying out for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've spoken about
It's quite a business.
development of internet radio as well.
Yeah.
presumably direct parallel transmission.
Yeah, just be exactly the same.
So, are you considering the development of wireless hotspots that could therefore transmit?
Can you put your name down under technical, please?
Sorted, leader. Internet Wi-Fi or like a radio.
Yeah, so well, a major audience presumably could be the transient population.
Yeah.
And tourists.
Yeah, definitely.
And they'll have their various devices on which to pick up.
Yeah.
The internet transmission.
Yeah.
So, is there any consideration? Has there been any consideration
We
about
have-
how they cater fill their needs?
Yeah, I mean, we are in talks in the last week of getting, it's just for the iPhone at the moment, but no, iPhone and Android devices to get an app made specifically for broadcasting our Cornish. I mean, it's ours, it's going to be Hub Media's, but we've invited the other radio stations in on it as well. So you could pick up your iPhone in St Mawes and listen to the Hub through your iPhone. St Mawes and Mevergissey are areas of concern for us because they are huge population areas and areas that we're going to serve. And we've included that population within our application. We do want to be able to service those areas, but as Pete says, until we've got the mast up and running and we find out exactly what the problem is, we can't really work out how to solve the problem. And I wasn't even aware that there are devices that you could perhaps pump it through the internet and then get a signal out that way. But
yeah,
There's Superfast coming as well. I mean, we're in talks. I've got a talk again. I've just put in an appointment today with Superfast Cornwall and with BT OpenReach, which I'm running with Rosen Online. And on the 2nd of July, we've got a meeting with them in Port Scaffold to go to the next stage. And in September, we'll know for sure exactly what areas are going to get it, what areas are not going to get it, and what areas are borderline. So we're getting close to having Superfast at our disposal as well. This time next year, we should all be up and running with Superfast in most areas around.
Well,
so that's
online, you can
as
go
well.
as far as you want all the way up country.
yeah, people around the world.
Sure.
We're going to hopefully hit the Cornish community again around the world.
Let them know who we are, right? Yeah.
That's the secret. People knowing you're there.
Yeah.
That's, our ICB have no knowledge who's actually listening to them at all. It's a massive problem. I did a sport programme there, and I had listeners from all over the place. I was just saying, I had a group of guys from Wolverhampton who listened to me. Every time Wolves weren't playing on a Saturday, they were listening to me, and I knew about it from them. But people don't know you exist. If you ask anybody in Scotland about RACB, and I'd tell you 9 out of 10 would say who.
Yeah. I work in Falmouth and it's the same with the source as well.
It's all about marketing, isn't it?
It is.
They must know you're there. It's no good. I mean, this is where OBs are good.
Definitely.
You can do as much as you like in the studio. If people don't know you're there, it's wasting your time. But if you go on an OB...
And that's one thing we wanted to start doing, whether we do it as much as that and sort of podcast it through the summer, but something we're quite keen on with the T-shirts and a bit of, a few banners, getting round the village shows now and starting telling people we're here.
We're going to do some discos for free for you.
There we go.
That's a good idea.
All the toys.
Have a night out.
As far as the apps and stuff are concerned as well, you can obviously use those to, say obviously the March Sales, but you're already doing that, but you can use those to put special offers and things. In terms of tourists, what you're saying, if somebody picks up the app, the motivation isn't just, oh lovely, they'll listen to the radio station. The idea is get them in spending money. So companies can kind of say, here's a voucher, if you download the app, you get a specific voucher come through on your iPhone to go and spend at the hairdressers or to go and spend at Longdist or whatever. It's that specific.
I've only just had basically I've had an offer from a guy who teaches app development, and he said that he will build it. We weren't broadcasting, so I couldn't say build it for us, and then it sits there and does nothing for a year. So I said let's get all the Cornish radio station, community radio stations on it. So it will hopefully be an app where you can select from a drop-down list of which I'll make sure the hub is at the top.
Do we have to do it with other? What's the main reason for doing it with other stations?
It's to get it built and get it out there now. We don't have to. We don't have to, but I have made that offer, and I don't know how much this sort of stuff costs to do.
There's a cost issue.
There is no cost to it being done now. But if we did it on our own in a year's time, 2 years' time, there may be a huge cost issue with the development of it. So
Yeah.
someone's willing to do it for free.
Yeah.
We have got, I know we are in that arena on the internet, we are in competition with other community radio stations, but it is a fairly, really sort of close community. They do work well together, would you agree?
They should all be linked together and work together regardless. Being community, a community radio is involved with a radio.
But it's sure you want the money coming back into this community, and so if you're sharing, all I'm thinking is if you're sharing the app with various other stations, when somebody comes in, they go, oh, lovely app, and they just take the first one that's on the list, which might be St Austell, it may be wherever, and go, oh, okay, I've got a voucher. Automatically, those people listening are going, those people with the app are going out that way, not in this way. And what you want them to do is, if they're coming to stay here, you want them to come and spend at the King's Arms, you want them to come and spend down in Portscatho, St Maurs, wherever. You're giving them the opportunity to go somewhere else. So I would just say,
it could be that it picks up where you are and gives you your community radio station for where you are. Can you write his name down for us?
I kind of automatically assumed that mine was on there.
That's a good question. So I'll make sure I talk to you when we talk to the developer, because all these phones have got GPS, haven't they?
Yes,
so it will give you the radio station perhaps for where you are.
And then you can get into like QR codes and all sorts, but literally if they've got a QR code in the shop window and you put your phone against it, you'll get the latest offers or whatever. But then what you would do, you see, if I'm to this, you've got to stop me with these things, but I would be inclined to say that's our app, nobody not to share, and then you would go around to all the holiday parks, caravans, whatever in this area, you give them a sticker and a leaflet and whatever that goes on all the windows or goes on all their information packs when tourists come to say, if you download this app while you're here, this is what you'll get and these are the benefits. And it markets itself.
Huge difference we've got.
Don't let her out.
No.
Yeah, I don't, this is the only chance I've been out in the month, so
the huge difficulty we've got is the guy, the app developer, the teacher, is going to do it now. And he will need a stream, a live stream, to be able to work and develop the app around the live stream that's being kicked out, and we're not in a position to provide that. The other thing as well is I was thinking on Cornwall branding, it's about people searching for Cornwall on their iPhone, there's Cornwall Community Radio, I'll download that. But
are they the same thing, an app to listen to the station though, and an app to download? Because the reason I was sort of going on about that really is, for example, something like Boardmasters in Newquay, the big surf event, you literally download the Boardmasters app as you go in the gate, and that entitles you to discounts and all sorts while you're in there. It's that specific an area. So I was more thinking, I suppose, about rather than necessarily gaining listeners, getting, it is about listeners too, but ultimately getting people using that as an avenue to get people to come and spend here, which ultimately is what we want, isn't it?
Well, so you're talking about an app for the area that's
an app which is almost like you download, for example, a Waitrose app, let's say, I don't know what comes to mind, and you just get automatically vouchers and different things come up. So it isn't necessarily dependent on needing to be able to listen to the station at that time. It's about being able to access the benefits of being a listener, if you know what I mean, which are different things in a way.
If I gave you half an hour of wildlife sounds, I make wildlife sounds in CDs. So if I give you something called Sounds of Nature, you transmit that under your license via the internet, wrap an app around it, and you start the whole ball rolling. Would that help?
You can take my program and Red Ruth if you want.
Well, yeah, in terms of setting up a stream for us to build the app on, that's fine, that's not a problem. It's more the fact that obviously it needs to be built now. But what you were saying about an app, like a local area app, that could be something that we look at once we're broadcasting as another development.
Where does the music research come from?
We'll have two conversations with him, because I don't want us to build something, a hub radio app, and for someone to download it and have it, and it doesn't do anything because we're not broadcasting it. That's
part of the, again, it depends who your target audience is really, because part of the, if the purpose of the app is for tourists, you've also got to think, actually tourists are going to be out and about and on the go most of the time, so they're not going to be necessarily sitting in listening to the radio. They might do, they might be sitting at their caravan or whatever, but also you kind of don't want them sitting and listening to their radio, because that's lovely for our listener figures, but and it's great for advertising, but ultimately you want to get them into the places that are trying to advertise to us to get, do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. So it's just, I suppose it would just be a case of somebody like me having a chat with the app guy and saying...
I think it's probably two, you're talking about two different ones there, and I think the second one, the the more geographical one rather
Yeah.
than radio, but
Yeah.
geographical but branded with the hub,
Yeah.
and got our marketing on board with it,
Yeah.
is probably a good idea, and that would also fit in
It is a
with
good
Roseland
idea,
and
but we've got to
that
think
sort of thing,
about
isn't
the
it?
seasonal
So-
issues of the times when it's quiet for the, holiday makers come down.
Locals want discounts as well.
Yeah,
don't they?
Yeah, of course they do. Because
Yeah.
Maybe fish and chip night free.
Yeah, of course
Yeah.
they do. But also,
Yeah.
it's got. I mean, again,
Yeah.
the good thing in a way. I know what you're saying about seasonal, but the good thing is these wouldn't necessarily be seasonal offers. They'd have more uptake during the
Oh,
season.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
but they're offers for anybody because you can
Yeah.
actually specify it tourists only or locals only.
But those that are here in the winter when nobody else is and everyone's back up country or wherever it is they're from,
Well, that's changing now.
that's where it
We're quite
becomes
lucky in
more
this area, aren't we?
Yeah,
Get-
that's changing. We have
community.
quite
That's
a
where it
lot
becomes more community.
We'll have a chat about that, and we'll
Yeah.
I'll make sure what he's offering. He might do two for one
Yeah.
offer.
Have we talked about target areas? I mean, in terms of population distribution, demographics. I mean, are you just saying we've got to reach everybody, or
We have looked
do
at
you
it.
accept that it's going to be 18 to 40s predominantly? I mean, I'm pretty reticent to that. How do you think about
Pete's
it?
got the results for that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Of demographics, and that's we did surveys.
Can't think of one.
Sorry we missed you. No, we did surveys. Yes, things like we've built into our what we're going to do, the fact that different times of the year our broadcast requirements are going to be slightly different because we're going to be talking about something that we would like to do is to talk about the beaches. Beach cleanliness, what's going on at different beaches, all the different, the what's on stuff for a 4-month period within our area is completely different to what's been broadcast in the winter. So, the same as the rest of Cornwall, the demographics, we're going to have to be very mindful of the fact they fluctuate. But then you still do get a lot of visitors down now, in all their second homes that come down during the winter. But again, they don't spend so much time on the beach, do they? Yeah.
Should we open it up for a bit of coffee and chat and individual one-to-ones and people want to put their name on the board?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, if, say, Steve wanted to do, a night where he's presenting or what have you, can he also put his name down,
You can put your name down on as many things as you want.
finance and you can both
You can put your name down on all of them if you want to. And what I just want to say before we do put your name...
Yes, you can put your name twice down on each one.
You're not signing up...
I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
you're not...
I think that's
Maybe
one on each, isn't it?
But that's
What
what
you
you said.
don't know, you can teach.
Steve, 1 second.
Yeah.
If you do put your name down, it's no contract, you're not held to anything. If your life gets too busy and you want to, sorry, I can't help for the next month or I don't want to do it anymore, just let us know. We'd rather you did that and gave us a few hours of your time in the next couple of months than walked away from it. If you just want to try it, see how it goes, stick with us, do it that way, that is absolutely fine. There is no commitment. All the responsibility, all the pressure, everything like that is solely on Mark's shoulders as the chair.
It's been a pleasure.
You need to get yourself a one-man band, Mark.
We made sure we wrote that in, didn't we?
Tell me something new.
So if you want to grab yourself a pen, grab yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, biscuit, whatever you want, ask us any more questions.
That's what the biscuits were about. It's a bribe.
The lace.
No such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
those who
thanks for
have
coming.
this bit. Brilliant.